Hi, I'm Chris Reese, President and CEO of Sussex Rural Electric Cooperative. Thanks for watching our 2024 online annual meeting. Once again, I'm going to answer some questions that you, the members, have submitted to us. And I'm going to start with the first one now. I'm going to paraphrase this because we had a few of them. What's up with the grid? Are we going to run out of electricity? Are we going to experience rolling blackouts? I can't exactly say no to this question. The issue is bigger now than it has been in years past. Never really used to worry about that. But things have changed a little bit. The reason for that is our government lately has been focusing on renewable sources of power and at the same time fighting climate change by reducing emissions of coal and natural gas power plants. The two of those kind of fight each other, and the problem is it's not a one-for-one replacement of renewable power and fossil fuel power. I could give you a little example of that. By renewable power, we're talking about solar and wind. For this example, let's say we were going to replace 100 kW of natural gas with 100 kW of solar. One for one, 100 for 100, seems correct. However, solar is probably only produced 8 hours out of the 24-hour day. The natural gas plant's running 24/7. So to make up the other 16 hours, battery storage would need to be used in that solar facility. Batteries last about 4 hours. So for the 16 hours, we need 4 times that, probably talking 400 kW of battery to work with the 100 kW of daytime solar. You can't use those solar panels to charge the batteries, so you need additional solar panels to charge the batteries while the other solar panels are providing power, probably about 200 kW. So in that example, you need 600 to 700 kW of solar and battery power to replace the 100 kW of natural gas. So you can see the magnitude is different for the two. The other problem is on the supply side, of course. You're replacing one for the other. The demand side is increasing. The last few years, probably the last decade, energy has been fairly stable across the country in terms of increasing or decreasing. But in the last couple of years, as we've come out of the pandemic, demand has increased. The big reason behind a lot of that, economic growth is one. But the big reason is data centers that are coming online. These are massive buildings throughout the country, very specific areas, but massive loads of servers in a building and cooling for those servers. Hundreds of megawatts, in some areas gigawatt of power. The other big change in electric demand is electric vehicles. As charging becomes more prevalent, that's load that never existed before. You're getting an increase in electric consumption that way. The US EIA, Energy Information Administration, has forecast, again nationally, a 2.5 and 3.2% growth over the next 2 years in demand. So your demand is going up, and if you're not careful, your supply is going away. The laws of supply and demand really come into play here. On top of that, in this past April, the US EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, passed a new rule that forces the emission reduction of existing coal plants and any new or to-be constructed natural gas plants, and it severely limits those emissions. Sounds good on paper, but the issue is those limits are pretty much unachievable as things stand today, and the timeline for doing so is probably unachievable as well. The EPA is suggesting these plants use technologies like carbon capture and storage that really aren't commercially available or widespread. In fact, as of right now, there are no power plants in the country that are achieving the 90% capture rate that the EPA is requiring of these plants. So to require these coal and natural gas plants to reduce emissions that can't happen, otherwise face extraordinary fines or penalties, they're going to have to close. So they close, that's taken away reliable power. You can't get the renewable power online fast enough and the amount that you need to replace that. So if again, your demand is going up, supply is going away, that's a recipe for disaster. So much so that NRECA, the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, which is the national trade organization that represents cooperatives, 900 of them across the country, has filed suit against the EPA to stop the implementation of this rule. It needs to be changed and modified. Jim Matheson, the president and CEO of NRECA, has said it's unlawful, unachievable, and unrealistic, and that prompted this lawsuit. Steve Brame, the president and CEO of Allegheny Electric Cooperative, our generation provider, has also come out against this rule and said, this head-scratching rule threatens to leave you, the consumer, in the dark. The National Electric Reliability Council, which is basically a independent watchdog for North America, Canada, Mexico included, along with the US, has released a report that basically puts 19 states in high-risk vulnerability to rolling blackouts in the next 5 years. 19 states. Thankfully, New Jersey and our grid, the PJM grid, is not in that group. We're kind of associated with a normal risk, but these things are problems, and the government policy needs to better balance the timeline for trying to fight climate change, which is a noble and worthwhile cause, but balance it against economic recovery and production. We should not have to take a step backwards to go forward. Taking a step backwards means losing reliable power. So in conclusion, our government needs to do a better job of phasing in carbon-free power while at the same time reducing emissions from fossil fuel sources balanced against economic recovery and production. Again, we shouldn't be going backwards. Our next question, there are multiple ones, were all regarding electric vehicles. Some about what we're doing with the rate, or can our grid withstand the additional load, and I'll answer them all in this section together. And I've answered this question before about EVs, and each time I do, I think the progress they're going to make on our system is going to be faster than it's been turning out to be so far. I think I first started talking about this with my board around 2018, 2019. Then we had the pandemic in 2020, and that kind of slowed things for a couple years. Saw things pick up in terms of seeing EVs on our system again around 2022, 23, and now in 2024. We're looking at it. We kind of extrapolate data from the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Registration Database against the towns that we serve and the populations that we serve, because most of our territory, we don't fully serve any one town other than Highland Lakes. But the database is done by zip code, so we can kind of say if we do 50% of wattage, we'll take 50% of those numbers. And based on that, we estimate maybe 150 to 250 cars, electric vehicles, are on our system. And that maybe comes out to about 2% of our homes. So not a huge penetration yet, but we're definitely seeing an uptick on that. Grid-wise, we're perfectly fine. Our substation, transformers, transmission lines, distribution lines are all well equipped to handle the additional load that electric vehicle charging will bring. I'm not concerned about that at all. At the micro level, though, say at a pole top transformer that serves 2, 3, or 4 homes, that may be where we start to see something. For example, a very small transformer, 5 or 10 kVA, could probably handle one charger, but if 2 or 3 of the homes that are on that same transformer all have a electric vehicle charger in their house, and they all start charging at the same time, that could lead to a problem. The worst case scenario there is, the transformer could trip off. One of those homes is going to call us to say they've got a power outage. Our crew will come out and they can determine that the transformer was overloaded, put a new, bigger size transformer there, problem solved. Granted, if that was happening all over the system all at the same time, it would be a problem. But again, the rollout of EVs and the penetration is coming in a lot slower, which is good for us. That allows us to build up transformer inventory, which we're fine on now. Supply chain issues in that regard have kind of gone away that we were dealing with a couple of years ago. And we can respond to a problem if it happens. We're aware that it could happen. We're ready to track it. We really haven't seen that happen yet, but we're going to be on it in that regard. So again, the slower rollout of EVs in our area is fine by us, allows us to ramp up and not have to do things too fast or spend too much money all at once. On the rate side, I'm happy to report we're actually making progress now on basically it's going to be a pilot project rate, working with a consultant who's analyzing where we stand with our rates, and also working with a company that can pull the data from the vehicles without having to install any additional equipment at the home. Combining all that, we think we'll be able to offer a rate that incentivizes our members to charge at times that are best for the utility, which is basically overnight. If everybody was to say come home on a summer afternoon and plug in their vehicles and start charging at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, that's typically when our summer peak times are. All that added load would result to us in a much higher bill, higher costs to us, unfortunately, get passed to the members. So the beneficial way of avoiding that cost is to charge overnight. So this rate would be something along the way of taking cents off the overnight times, the kilowatt hours used just to charge, not on the whole house, but just on the car charger. And at the same time, there would be a surcharge to charge the car during peak times. And those will be set times. We're still in the process of evaluating this and coming up with the right numbers. But I'm hoping timing-wise, end of the summer, we could have something. You can watch our website for updates on that. You can go directly to the EV page at www.sussexrec.com/electric-vehicles. We're probably purchasing a EV for our own use here at the office, replacing one of our fleet vehicles that employees use for local trips and trips out of state even, and to conferences in Pennsylvania or meetings and such that we do frequently. And that way we can learn both local and long distance. And charging here at the office, we just installed a 4-port charging station that we were able to pay off part of it through a state grant. About a third of that cost will be offset from the state, so we could charge it ourselves, drive it ourselves. It'd be a marketing tool for us and allow us to get more information out to you, our members, about performance and charging and off-site charging and things like that. So a lot of good things happening. I'd say it's finally here now, more so than previous years. We're truly seeing progress. From an electric utility standpoint, it's a good thing for us. We're adding electricity. That's what we sell. That's what we're in business to do. But we want to do it cost effectively and efficiently. And this is something very similar to our ETS, electric thermal storage heat, or to our water heater shedding program, where we can shift the peak to more beneficial times and everybody benefits from that. Here's a question I don't get asked much, or rather one I get asked all the time. And it usually starts with, so there's this tree. Trees are the number one problem for the co-op in terms of outages and overhead power lines. Every year, it's the number one cause of power outages. In 2023, 45% of the power outages we recorded were due to a tree branch or an uprooted tree or a tree failure. About the same number that we always see. What's happening that we're seeing more of, though, are one specific type of tree, the ash tree, that's been heavily decimated by the emerald ash borer, an invasive species that's been wreaking havoc basically across the eastern half of the country, wiping out the ash tree population. There's no real solution in sight to fix that, other than all the ash trees will eventually fail, and then I don't know where the ash borer goes from there. I don't believe it touches other trees. It's just that one. So we have to kind of deal with removing the trees that are dying or dead, and the ash borer is taking care of the trees outside of the right-of-ways, which we don't concern ourselves much. But How it does affect us is specifically the more frequent failure of the ash trees, and then the trees outside of the right-of-way that weren't failing at the rate they do now. So that costs us more because now we have to try and get what we call danger trees more frequently. I'm not an expert on trees. Fortunately, we do have an expert at the office, our staff forester, Rob Guevara. So I'm going to let him handle the rest of this question and throw it to him. Rob, take it away.
I'm Claudia Raffay, the Director of Marketing and Member Services, answering questions from our members with our forester, Rob Guevara.
My name is Robert Guevara. I'm a certified arborist. I was hired by Sussex Rural as their forester to manage tree trimming and hazard trees and member concerns with trees. We trim trees to increase system reliability. Trees can cause outages if the branches grow into the lines. They can also cause fires. We cut the trees 10 feet away from the sides of the line and 15 foot above so they can't bend into the lines during a storm.
We trim our right-of-ways, and we're in one right now. We do it on a 4-year cycle. So you have to trim quite a bit on a tree.
Yes, we take at least 10 feet. It may be more. Proper pruning practices don't like you to leave stubs. They want it cut all the way back to the tree, so if it's 12 feet to the tree, they don't leave a 2-foot piece. They go the total 12 feet. It's better for the health of the tree.
Kind of like when you trim a flower, you go all the way to the junction of the stem and the offshoot. What areas or situations would Sussex Rural be responsible for trimming?
We trim trees within 10 feet of either side of the power line, and anything touching or putting weight onto a service wire.
Okay, so you mentioned the service wire. It's only when it's touching the service wire?
Correct.
So if a tree is hanging over someone's service wire, but it's not touching it, whose responsibility is it?
That would be the member's responsibility.
It's the member's responsibility. Okay. How do we determine if we actually remove a tree?
We determine that based on the tree's health, its proximity to Sussex Rural equipment, overall lean, if it's leaning towards it.
People will say they have a hazard tree. What defines a hazard, and how do we determine when and how we take it down?
When you have a hazard, it has to have a specific target. In our case, it's Sussex Rural equipment, poles, power lines, transformers. We determine that and our time frame by the overall health of the tree. If the base is rotted, it would go on more of a priority than a tree that's mildly leaning towards the power lines.
And how do you determine if a tree is dead?
The easiest way is if you can get to a small branch and crack it open, and you see if there's any green left inside the twig. If it's dry and brittle, there's spark loss, another big sign.
And what should a member do if they believe a tree near power lines is dead or dying?
They should contact the utility and preferably either send pictures by email to trees@sussexrec.com or mark the tree with a ribbon, put a cone in front of it, anything that's an identifying item.
What kinds of trends or reoccurring problems are you seeing with trees in our area?
Currently, our biggest reoccurring trend is the emerald ash borer killing the ash trees.
And this is a big problem. It's not just here, correct?
It's a worldwide problem. Only 5% of the world's population of ash is left. We are starting to see some becoming healthier.
Oh, ash trees are becoming healthier?
Yes, we have one right here. It's got about 80% of its crown. They were considering ash trees unsavable at the point where it had 30% left. And this is a big change. I think the emerald ash borer is starting to move on where there's more of a food load.
I hear the sponge moth which used to be called the gypsy moth, is an issue this year?
Yes, we're starting to see their silk hanging from trees and them defoliating full trees very, very quickly.
And can you explain to us, when a tree is defoliated, that really means that it can't feed itself, correct?
Correct.
So Rob, what are things that the homeowner can do to make sure that their trees don't grow into our power lines?
A homeowner should be conscious of how tall the new tree they plant is going to grow. Make sure it isn't going to grow into the power lines. We have information about where to locate a new tree depending on its height. Most nurseries, if the homeowner buys a tree, they can speak to them. They'll explain the growth rate, how tall they grow. The Arbor Day Foundation has a program called Right Tree, Right Place. There's a lot of information on their website of how to limit tree to wire contacts.
Great information.
Our last question is about paying the bill. Specifically, why am I being charged a fee when I pay my bill with credit card or debit card? Technically, we're not charging a fee. We're passing on the cost that we have to pay to the credit card providers and passing it through onto the bill to those of you that pay with credit card or debit card. Because there are free options to pay our bill, we aren't absorbing the cost to do business of the credit card options. You could still pay your bill with a bank draft or kind of the old-fashioned way with writing a check and mailing it in. Keep in mind, we're still a not-for-profit utility, cost-based. So to absorb the costs of the credit card providers, this is one way by passing this through, again, when there are other options that don't cost anything, a way to kind of help keep our costs down. We process 80,000 plus payments online every year, and if there was a fee on every one of those, that would be a pretty enormous cost that would go into our operations, which again would be spread out to the members. So as long as there's free options, with the bank draft, we're going to still pass that fee on. Credit card fees have gotten higher than they ever used to be too, and you see a number of businesses doing the same thing, particularly in the restaurant business, and they don't always have a free option other than paying cash. So I feel like the bank draft is an easy way to do it online. It's almost identical to how you pay with a credit card. You're just entering a routing and bank account number rather than your credit card information. Everything else on the screen is basically the same. And the easiest way of all to do it is an auto draft. You sign up once, put in your bank information, and then on each month when your bill is due, that exact amount gets withdrawn from your bank. And you don't have to actually go in and do anything. You can go in and schedule it once a month if you want to, but the auto draft is the easiest way to do it all. And then on top of that, we have the paperless bill option to save. That saves the co-op a couple dollars on postage and mailing. And again, when you're paying online, you're saving some money on the postage as well. And currently, on top of all that, we're running a promotion to promote auto draft and paperless billing. Anybody who signs up between now and August 10th will be entered to win a $250 bill credit. All you have to do is enroll in auto draft or paperless billing or both. If you enroll in both, you get 2 chances to win. Members who are already enrolled in this don't have to worry. You're going to be automatically entered in the drawing as well. Again, that promotion runs until August 10th, 2024. Go ahead and give it a try. You could save some money and at the same time maybe win a prize. Okay, thanks for watching, and for everyone who submitted a question, I appreciate it. If I didn't answer it, or if you have thought of another question, please feel free to reach out to us through our Member Services Department. And don't forget, you can register for 2 tickets to our Member Appreciation event at the Sussex County Fairgrounds during the week of the fair. Our event date is Monday, August 5th. Again, right here on our website in the annual meeting section is where the registration is. You can get 2 tickets. We'll be there all day. We'll have some other prizes, giveaways. I'll be there all day. I can answer more questions. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone there. Thanks.